Welcome back to Island Tea with your faves, Kevon and Azem, and it is still Thursday, March 18th. It is now 9:09 a.m., and we are jumping in to our interview segment, Eat Local with Faron Lawrence. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kevon and Azem. Good morning, afternoon, evening to listeners, depending on where they are in the world, listening and viewing Island Tea at this time. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
Oh,
So, Kevin,
thank you for
um,
coming. So we like to. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so we love to start this segment off with you telling the listeners and viewers a little bit about who you are and what it is you do, so we can get familiar with you.
Um, as you indicated, my name is Faron Lawrence, essentially a businessman in St Kitts and Nevis, real estate developer, mainly. Also does some work in the citizenship by investment program as well. Um, as you're aware, my voluntary work over the past 20 years or so was in relation to the music festival, where I served on various committees up to the chairpersons for 10 of those years.
Well, you seem to have a very varied background. Um, but tell us a bit about you and your upbringing. Where exactly did you grow up here in St. Kitts?
Um, I grew up in a area in Nevis as a little boy, um, right in the area of Lower Craddock Road, Low Street area as a little boy. Spent most of my younger years there. Went to school, left Nevis at about 17, went to university, worked in the U.S. for quite some time. Um, my training experience was in economics and finance, and I worked in investments for quite a while in the U.S. Before returning in 1996, where I returned to take a position locally as the manager of corporate finance at the Eastern Caribbean Home Mortgage Bank. Did that for a while, then
That bank doesn't exist anymore, does
yes,
it?
it does.
Yeah.
It operates from the central bank.
Ah, okay. Oh, okay, got you.
Then worked at National Bank Trust Company, where I was the general manager for a few years, and then branched off into my own business, mainly into real estate development.
Okay. Um, Again, so you had a business background, finance, and economics, and you decided to move into to real estate. What was some of the um what was it that kind of encouraged you to make that move?
Um, I I saw a need at the time. I think at the time I was at the National Bank Trust Company, and there were lots of complaints at the time from persons living in the UK, particularly, who were sending monies back home to build houses and felt that they were getting ripped off. They come home and there's nothing there, or the house is incomplete. And at the time, I thought to myself, you know, what an opportunity it is for someone who they can trust, someone who's going to do it right.
Right.
And so I decided to go into that business. Um, so it started out where I went to England and met with um, persons of Saint's background at various parts of England, in Birmingham, Leeds, and did presentations
Mm.
to let them know who I am, what I'm about, with the hope that I would get some business to return with, which I did, and then the rest was history after that.
Well, you see, it's interesting that you use that word opportunity. A lot of times, that's kind of what it takes, having an eye for opportunity and the the will to be able to take the risk, because like you said, you went up there not knowing what the outcome might be. You would have prepared, I'm sure, and done your best but at the end of the day, it was still a risk.
It was a huge risk because I remember very well, I can't forget it. I think at that time I would have had about, all my savings would have been at the time about $35,000, $40,000. And it took all that for the trip,
Right.
to pay for the hotel, where I was inviting persons to come to attend the meetings. And I think at the time, my thinking was, if I get even just one property to build, it would
Yeah.
be worth it.
Would be worth it, right?
Fortunately, I came back with four at the time, so it was definitely a risk that I took, and the return was worth it.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, I don't have to be specific here, but around what age were you when you made that particular switch?
I would have been about 30. I want to say about 35.
35. All right. And the reason I ask that is I like to put that information out there, because sometimes people, see this, especially young people, we have these plans. I want to be married by 25, have 3 children, have a house, and things don't always work out that way. And I think that sometimes we beat upon ourselves a lot, not recognizing that, hey, it's all a journey, and your journey is yours. And you keep plugging away, and like you said, look for opportunities and keep moving in it to better yourself. Because one of the things that my dad usually says is, like, take the risk now. Like he calls it risk resilient.
Yeah.
Right. Take it. It might not always work out, but you'll come up with a lesson.
Well, I think the lesson is, the trick is to take calculated risks.
Right.
You don't want to just throw a dart and hope that it fit in the right spot.
Right.
You want to do some calculations, make some judgments, do some research, and at least try to ensure you have at least a 50-50 chance at doing this. And it takes a lot of courage too, because at the time when I decided to go into business for myself, I had a good salary at a good job. I was the general manager of National Bank Trust Company, and it took a lot for me to give that up to venture into doing something for myself. But for me, having done the necessary research, I kind of saw a clear path to being able to take advantage of the opportunity that was there.
Well, sometimes I think what's missing is we don't always have the people around us who see the vision, and it's as a matter of fact, I'll go out and say that a lot of times no one else sees the vision but you. And sometimes we're lucky enough to have people that, even if they don't see it, they believe in us and support us. But sometimes that's not the case, and sometimes without having that support system, like, people, start to falter, maybe second guess. Even if they've done the research, they've done their, their plans, and like you said, try to make calculated decisions. But did you have persons in your life at the time that would have helped to support you on this step?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I had a group of friends who were very like-minded in terms of taking advantage of business opportunities, and so you could always bounce your ideas off of them, and they're honest. They're going to tell you what just makes no sense, what is stupid, what is sensible, and which is what you want. You want friends who are going to give you real, honest feedback and not just tell you what they think you want to hear. But, most times a business person get ahead. There's that one key person who you could say, well, had it not been for this person,
right,
I may not have been able to get to where I got to. And for me, that person is a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Kelly. Ken Kelly, him as part of Barker and Kelly.
Yes.
Who actually, I don't know for what reason, I don't know what he probably saw in me or whatever, but on my first project, he was able to give me the opportunity with lands that he had to make that step. And so I always give credit, lots of credit to him for that assistance to break out from the rigors of working for people to take a chance and go on my own.
Yeah, definitely. We do need people around us. No man is an island. And sometimes you need a little luck.
Absolutely.
And a little favor.
Yep.
Right? A little luck, a little favor to make things happen. But you mentioned having that group of people around you that like-minded. They say birds of a feather flock together, right? And iron sharpeneth iron. And so it's very interesting that you said that, because I do believe that it's important who we surround ourselves with, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting how that played into, your willingness to make the step. I know Kevon had a question. Kevon.
Right. So, you mentioned how you basically made a career out of real estate. Do you think it's still viable in this day and age and based on how things are looking for the country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That, to my mind, real estate is always going to have opportunities in it. What I think is important is to pay attention to, for example, the market changes along the real estate ladder.
Right.
You have to know where to position yourself to take advantage. For example, I happen to believe right now there is a big need for housing in the range of about, I want to say about between $350,000-$400,000, where persons could have a monthly payment of like $2,500, $2,600, $2,700.
Right.
I think there's a big market there for that right now, where essentially a police and a teacher, a nurse, and who are married could combine themselves and have the requisite loan payment ratio
Manageable.
and so.
So you're saying maybe professional, middle income couples
Correct.
who trying to maybe start a family.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when you combine the two incomes, they can have at least $5,500. So $2,700 out of that to pay for housing is acceptable.
Right.
And I think that's a huge market. I believe what's going on a lot is that, and I have done it, we have gone on the higher end of the six,
Right.
7, 800,000. Then the government does a good job of dealing with the lower end, the persons who are
Right.
looking help. Is that middle section
Right.
that has real potential for persons looking to get into real estate.
And now that you've said that, it's so true, because I always said a lot of the offerings, sometimes for somebody who looking for perhaps a step up or a comfortable, like you said, trying to maybe build a family. If she married, the options are really limited. Sometimes it feels as though you have to be you have to be at a certain level in terms of income and thing to find homes, right? So that's something that I've witnessed as well, and you're definitely on the ball there, because I know friends, for instance, young professionals, young professionals who've gone off to study, good jobs, perhaps now just finished paying up the student loan, and now looking to move into that, and it's difficult for them to find,
Yep.
So sometimes we resort to building on our own, which is sometimes something that we don't really want to take on, the headache of finding a contractor and the architect and all these things. So I think that is definitely a space that has some opportunity.
You see, because the point is, if you're a young professional, you're busy at work, you can't take on the contractor needs. 2 times in the day you need to leave your job, you put your job at risk. So some persons have said to me, that's one reason why they do business with me. They don't have that issue. And so the whole issue of trying to do a turnkey, once the pricing is right, is always a good option.
Well, I know, for instance, I have a friend right now who is in that same predicament, and he's an entrepreneur. He works for himself, and he wants to move into a new home. He's been renting for some time. Now has a child, and thinking, hey, I want to move into a new space. But his thing in discussions is, I don't know if I have the time to take on, the stresses of building. And I don't think people recognize that, there's options where you can, have someone who does that to really
Correct.
to help you along the way.
It is extremely stressful, and a builder, a good friend of mine who's a builder, once said to me, and this was so instructive for me. He says, I was building my house, the men are my men, and I ended up having to fire them to get them out of the house. They wouldn't even leave my house. And imagine, they're his workmen. So you get a sense of the challenges.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know Kevon is probably going to build his seventh house. His seventh house, how many minutes now?
It's coming. I'm already in the works. I'm working on the seventh and eighth at the same time. Why not? But I'd love for you to shed some light on how you feel, what you think about the COVID market. The market since COVID hit. Yeah, I know, things have tanked and everybody's, worried about money and the next step. How do you feel that COVID has affected the housing market?
Like other industries, I think COVID has its toll on the housing market. Many financial institutions are taking a wait and see attitude, wants to see what's going to happen. But I think at this point, I think things are going to come back. And I think actually things are on their way back, to be quite honest. And around the world, as well as in St Kitts and Nevis, I think having the vaccine here gives you a light at the end of the tunnel. So I know quite a number of business persons are now positioning themselves for there will be no such thing as a post-COVID, but a world adapted to COVID. And so I think persons are preparing themselves for that.
Right.
You can't wait for us to get there for you to start preparing, or you're gonna be left behind. Yeah. So a lot of the prudent business persons are making the investment now,
positioning themselves,
because it has to come back.
Right.
I don't think it's gonna go any lower. You have to come back.
Right. Well, we've already spoken about recognizing opportunities, and we say it here all the time on the show. Like, now is a time when you have to examine yourself. You have to figure out, what are my skills, what are my talents, and keep an eye out for opportunities where you could employ those skills and talents, because it's adapt or die right now.
Yep.
We can't just sit back and hope and ask the government and just to, we have to at some point recognize that this is a time of change, and you have to get on board. You have to figure out what is the next step.
Absolutely.
Before the next step reach.
Yep.
So you could position yourself so you don't fall flat on your face. But again, you would have done so many things, involved in so many endeavors, and one of them, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners may, be familiar with you from, is your time as the chairman of the St Kitts Music Festival. Were you the chairman from its inception?
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. That's one of the most interesting work I've ever done in my life. I joined the committee just as a volunteer in 1997. I think at that time I was on the finance committee.
Oh, okay.
After about 4 years, I was the deputy chairman of that festival. Then a couple of years later, I became the chairman of that committee.
Wow.
Then I became the co-chair of the festival itself, then eventually the chairman of the festival. So I kind of grew with the festival over the years, but constantly taking on additional responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the chairman in charge of it for 10 years, up until 2017, which is when it was just time to do something else, move on.
Right.
Sometimes it's difficult to give up positions, but you have to know when it's time to go. When maybe you just don't get as excited as you used to,
right.
or you realize younger persons are telling you things that you can't even relate to, that's usually time to get up and leave and let somebody new, somebody younger get in the spot. So I got to that point and I said, you know what, the festival is has its own life and it need to move and keep moving up.
Well, similarly to you and your journey with the festival, because you said you joined as a volunteer.
Absolutely.
And would have over the years, gotten to the place that you got to, within the organization. Did you have any aspirations, to even get into that position when you first joined the festival?
Not at all. Well, strangely enough, I used to be in a band, so I love music. And so the opportunity just to get involved in a festival, even as a volunteer, was exciting. And that's what what attracted me to it. But as I got into it and I realized how big it is, I'm a student of management. I love to manage things. I love to see all the 20 parts of something come together as one and work. And so that's what started to excite me, the whole idea of managing the organization, getting all the parts to function effectively and efficiently, and at the end producing a world-class festival. Because you're talking about over 300 volunteers, 20 different committees, a national...
20 different committees?
Yes.
Wow. So maybe more than departments and the government go by.
So for me, as a student, as a continuous student of management, it was exciting just to put some of that management skills to work. You don't get that chance very often.
Right.
I often say to people, some of the best experience I got in my life was through volunteering, and I always encourage my children, any young persons, to always make sure you volunteer for something, anything, in church, Red Cross. There's so much you learn from volunteering.
Yeah, and we spoke about positioning yourself just a while ago, and volunteerism is a way for you to position yourself to, like you said, learn and gain some valuable experience.
Yep.
And from your example, perhaps even grow into something that is not even, no longer volunteerism, right?
Correct.
But I know Kevon, whose alias is actually Fetvon, is a avid supporter of the music festival. I'm sure he has some questions, Kevon.
Yes. I also have to say that it's admirable that you found that. You said that you noticed you needed to step down because things were changing and you could no longer connect. And I feel like we often see the opposite of that. People no longer connect, or they refuse to admit that they no longer can connect, and they stay in these positions. And unfortunately, some of the times, some of these things fail because of the lack of motion. So I have to say that's a great awareness to have. But I also want you to tell me about the major changes that you saw happen with the music festival happening over the years.
Technology. Well, first of all, let me just say, I think even since I've left in 2017, we have seen the festival just gone to another level.
Right.
The new team brought in a new level of excitement, a new level of interest, new young persons with skills and abilities that I couldn't even think of. And so, to my mind, the whole system worked.
Right.
You're bringing new people. So what we're seeing now is where the festival is having more broader and wider appeal to young, middle-aged, old-age persons, taking advantage of all the technologies and so on that's out there, to the point where, anybody could tell you what the St Kitts Music Festival offer is a world-class concert by any measurement.
Definitely.
Measurement. I've gone to festivals, and I could tell you there's nothing that I can say I've seen out there that they don't get at the St Kitts Music Festival. And I think we as a country, that's one of our main achievements. And bearing in mind also the number of other festivals regionally and internationally that started up
And that no longer there.
and are no longer there.
Yeah.
We have been consistent for 20, except for COVID, of course.
Yeah.
We have been consistent, and it just goes to show how, that's another example of where we are small, but we have a people that is resourceful, a people who are committed to their country and getting things done. I mean, governments that continuously try to improve lives, improve conditions. I mean, I think as a people, we are blessed to have the kind of people who actually go into government and just are interested in taking the country a next step, a next level.
Right.
And that came through quite clearly in the music festival. You see,
Yeah.
one administration goes out, a new one comes in, but guess what? Music festival still continued to rise.
Continue,
That's I mean, that's really, really remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, music festival would have played a huge part in the direction my life would have taken. Somebody involved in entertainment, and particularly live events. I remember when I decided to go up to study, I initially signed up for like studio stuff, recording engineer and that kind of thing. And it was actually after going to the music festival of that year where I decided, you know what, I think I'm more interested in the live show production, and I actually changed my major because of it. And even before then, I was always involved in music and stuff like that. My parents weren't ones who were, they didn't really allow me to go to the music festival when I was in school and thing. But, and mommy, if you're listening, and I listen sometimes, it's a confession. I love you, love you. But I used to actually skip school and go to the sound checks.
Sound checks, yeah.
I used to go to the sound checks. So I remember I used to go to Bassett High School, and then when the festival started happening down in the park, it was just an easy hop over.
Correct.
An easy hop over to go to sound checks. And the funny thing is, I would have met people at those sound checks who are now my colleagues. Like I still liaise with them, still talk to them on almost a daily basis. So it's interesting how things come full circle.
Yep.
But even that, I mentioned Warner Park, and there's a lot of people who still associate music festival with the Fort Thomas grounds and things like that, because the nostalgia and the memories that would have been forged there. That being one of the changes over the years. How do you see the new venue up at the stadium? How do you see that affecting the festival? And also just on a wider scale, like Kevon said, like what are some of the changes over the years that would have really shaped what music festival is right now?
Well, you talk about venue, and that was always a big challenge for us when we started. There was a cost factor in terms of every time you set up a new venue, it could get more expensive.
Right.
I, for one, was pleased with, I love the Fort Thomas situation, but I had no resistance to the Warner Park. And a couple of reasons. One, well, my main reason was Warner Park afforded some decent seating. And so a lot of the persons, the older persons who wouldn't have come because they have to stand all night down at Fort Thomas, you see them start coming out and they're up in the stands and they're comfortable. And so I particularly, I felt that it opened up the number of persons who attended the festival just by virtue of the fact that they could have a good seat.
A seat, right.
So that was it. To me, that was good. Going over to you're talking about the stadium now.
Yeah, Kim Collins Stadium.
I have to tell you, the last time it was there, I thought it was well laid out. I liked the energy that was there. And quite frankly, I have no difficulty with that. I think, I can't recall if they used the stands. Were people able to sit in the stands?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of obtained, that kept going in terms of older people who may not want to spend the money to go into a private booth or whatever, can still have a comfortable place to sit. But you know, to be honest, Azem, is that sometimes we get too comfortable with what we know, and we lose opportunities by not going or not accepting new things or change. And I think I think I heard someone said, you know, change could be your friend or your enemy, but it's up to you, not the change. And I think it's an attitude thing. You know, you're at a new venue. Let's make it work. Let's make it interesting. Let's make it exciting, rather than you know, complain about what was before, what's different. And too many times we get caught up in that.
Yeah, you're right. You know, and I remember when the change, when the announcement was made, you had all these different views about it. And my thing was, the music can be good. like the experience can be fine. Like, enjoy the music.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Go and enjoy the music. But speaking of the music and the performances, you're somebody who's been around music festival for so long. I'm very interested in who are some of your most memorable performances at the St Kitts Music Festival?
Oh yeah, well, Tony Braxton. Tony Braxton stayed in my mind. Lionel Richie stayed in my mind. I think it was. I mean, this might sound strange to you, but one of the acts that stood out in my mind quite vividly was Pluto Shervington.
Pluto Shervington.
That's probably one of the better shows I'd ever seen, where people wouldn't even let the man sing. The crowd just sang all his songs.
Every song.
Let's see. We were blessed with some fantastic artists coming to St. Kitts. There's one artist I'm trying to remember. He was young and upcoming. I forget his name right now. But what I wanted to say is that we got him that year. About a year later, I think at the time we paid like maybe $20,000 for him. About a year later, he was the biggest thing in the world. Biggest thing in the world.
I know who it is. Chris Brown.
Chris Brown.
Got you.
Yeah. And
then I know it was Chris Brown.
When we go back for Chris Brown, they were talking $500,000.
Of course.
Said, okay, been there, done that. Don't need that. And that happened. Tresan Singh.
Yeah, Tresan Chin.
Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah, just before the voice.
Correct.
Right.
But by that time we already had you. So so we have been lucky to have some really world-class performers perform here in St Kitts and Nevis. And I always say to people, for you to have the opportunity to come see 10 top world-class artists at the price of $100. But back at the time, and I don't see how people stay home.
Right.
Yeah, man, and let me tell you something.
That's the crazy part. It's all of these amazing acts for this. And you have to be honest. It's a ridiculous price.
Absolutely.
We really have to consider the production, the quality. How do we, and you have to really ask yourself, we're really paying this to see this multitude of artists?
Yes, but you see, what's the benefit? Yes, there's the tourism benefit, there's the income to the government, to the country in terms of persons visiting and spending money. But, I look at one of the main benefits of people like Azem, who take an interest in arts and culture and now taking it to a different level. Is back in St. Kitts doing what you do. Inspired by music festival. Those are the qualitative achievements that we got to pay attention to, not just the quantitative ones.
Right.
So I always tell people music festival has been and continue to be one of the successes of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yeah, and a lot of people might not know, even in terms of the impact. I know that music festival facilitates like the workshops during the day. And again, I have another story about that. Like, I would have gone to the workshop one time when Third World was facilitating the workshop. Fast forward some few years later, I'm touring with Third World. So it's like
precisely.
It's like you don't know don't know where the what the impact. We don't know the range and the scope of the impact that that music festival has had.
Correct.
Here on the island.
And it's not just the artists, huh? I mean, remember that artists come with artist managers,
Right.
who people here looking at and seeing what they do. They bring marketing people. The artist comes with so many other professionals in the music
Support
business.
staff, yeah.
So that you're now starting to see the bigger picture, the wider picture of the music industry, and realize, listen, I may not be able to be an artist, but guess what? I could be into production.
Right.
I could be into the media, writing about, there's so many different
Journalism,
aspects. Journalism,
entertainment journalism, yes.
journalism, correct. And so people now started to see different aspects of the music industry and got interested.
Yeah. Man, I think that music festival has, for some time, been a real envy, and I only recognized that after I started traveling, and especially in these circles, when I would go out and tell and people know, oh, where your accent? You're in Jamaican. Where you from? I'm like, oh, St Kitts. Oh, I mean with the festival, with the big, y'all have the big festival down there.
Yep.
Like, you can't get me on the show.
Yep.
And that is something that tells me the level at which the festival is viewed at.
Yep.
Because you have artists, and I'm talking about big artists, like asking if you could get them on the show. Like they see it as a marquee event.
Correct.
Even within the industry. And so I think that speaks highly of the job that, like, yourself as you're there and the current team has done and is doing.
Correct.
With the festival. But there's always the talk, and you spoke about impact and the things that we see tangibly, from music festival. But there's always been the conversation, or is it worth it? And I want you to spend just a few minutes talking about that, because it comes up every year. Every day is music festival, and there's always this talk, like, by what it, like, millions of dollars spending and whatever. And you touched on it, but tell us a bit more about the importance of music festival to St. Kitts.
Okay. A big part of it is it's hard to quantify, meaning from a tourist product, you can't beat that. I mean,
Right.
You said it yourself, where you're out there in the world and people are recognizing St. Kitts by the music festival.
Right.
So I sometimes say to people, we may not be able to pay to advertise on CNN. That would probably cost more than what the festival
Indeed.
costs us. But guess what?
Right.
Festival is getting us out there. And people need to understand the objective of the festival. That is one of the key objectives of the festival, to get St. Kitts on the map, which it has done. In terms of money, yes, I know at the time when I was there, the government would have given, if I recall, maybe like $3 million subvention towards it. But I'm always of the view that when you look at that week of music festival, the money that people spend, the people coming into the country, the hotels, the taxis, the restaurants, everybody is just passing money. And remember, every time you pass that money, you're paying VAT.
Right.
Persons are paying hotel taxes, restaurant taxes,
Renting vehicles.
staying in. The economic activity that it generates also results in new taxes back into the government. So even if the government doesn't make back all quantitatively in terms
from
of
ticket sales,
right, when you look at the overall benefit to the country, I think we will surpass the cost. And I say to I sometimes say to persons, what we need to do for people to understand the impact of music festival is 1 year, just don't have it.
Right.
Just don't have it. And let us look to see what our numbers, business, government, everybody's numbers look like for that month.
Right.
Sometimes we can only appreciate what we have when we no longer have it.
Right.
And so my view is it is a success story. It is something we want to continue to promote and do.
Yeah, I think that, and this is an argument that I have made, um, in different forums, that there is nothing that sparks and stimulates economic activity quite like entertainment.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
The wide range of services that it stirs up. Everything from the amount of clothes that come in so people could look good going to the thing, the hairdressers,
Absolutely.
just even the brewery, the drink
Everything.
makers, like so many service providers, tents, stage, like it's so much that you like you said, it's hard to try and quantify like,
Yeah.
the amount of economic activity that is stimulated during that time. Restaurants, bars, you mentioned there's so many other areas that get stimulated. I think that,
Puts money in everybody's pocket.
yeah, and I think that is sometimes lost on us. Not only that, I think that we hear $3 million, and yes, it's a lot of money, but relatively speaking, like if you really knew what people spend on sometimes 1 day concerts
Yep.
for one night. Like I've worked on
Right.
shows where they paid the artist $1 million and the artist performed for 20 minutes.
Absolutely. I'm aware of that as well.
Like
Yeah.
the artist performed for 20 minutes
Yep.
to a closed thing on a cruise ship here, just for the cruise ship people, the people on the cruise ship. No locals were able to come. $1 million is what they paid, and
Yep.
we now have basically a 3-day festival which does all of this for the country.
Correct.
And so sometimes you just have to put things in the proper context.
Context, right.
And to fully appreciate the reality.
Absolutely.
But time is running down. I wish we had another 8 hours, but but unfortunately no. But
But I actually want to know. We asked you the question of what was some of your favorite acts throughout the years, but I would like to know what was your favorite year, the entire production. What would have been your favorite year?
I would have to say the Lionel Richie year.
okay.
And that's personal to me because his music has always followed. I think he's a super artist.
Yeah, man.
And
Since the
so-
Commodore days.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So that would have to be. That's one of the most memorable years for me.
Who were some of the other artists on that year, if you could recall?
I want to say there's a Jamaican artist, a real conscious reggae artist. He plays the guitar. What's his name? A dreadlocks.
Not one of the Marleys.
No,
Okay.
can't remember his name.
It'll
but-
come to you.
But he was excellent too.
Yeah,
He was
and
excellent.
you see, I think you ask you what's your favorite year, and you jump directly to the performers. And at the end of the day, it's about the music, it's about the performance, it's about the experience.
Absolutely.
That is what
Right.
stays, and that's what lingers.
Yep.
But now I'm curious. You said you're a real Lionel Richie fan, but who would be an artist, dead or alive, who, if you had the chance to bring to music festival, like who would you bring?
Air Supply.
Yes.
I totally enjoyed that show as well. I forgot to mention that as one of my favorites. That was a show out of this world.
I've spoken to several people who still talk about the Air Supply,
Yeah.
the Air Supply performance.
Yeah.
So obviously it was man.
That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. Almost as amazing as Lionel Richie.
Almost.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. But quickly, just the music festival used to be 4 nights. Eventually we opened up the Sunday night, and it's now been filled by several other events, mainly the White Sands, Carambola White Sands. But do you think we'd ever get to a situation where we could see the gospel night coming back, or is that ship sailed?
I don't think it may not have so much to do with what night it is, whether gospel or regular
Right.
regular night. The challenge for that was financial, quite frankly. What we found was happening was most of the persons who come to music festival, they may come the Tuesday, the Wednesday, the week before, but they're leaving on the Sunday.
Right.
And so it was difficult the dance couldn't pay for the lights on a Sunday, no matter
Right.
who we had. I mean, I remember one Sunday we had Kenny Rogers, and we thought, okay, this has to be the solution.
Right.
And that still did not provide the solution because persons have to get back home
Get back
to
home
work
to
on
work
Monday.
on Monday, yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
your fixed costs, your daily fixed cost remains the same. You still got to pay for rent a amp to be there, for all the production people to be there. So, any gains you made Thursday, Friday, Saturday, for many years, when we look at the numbers, we
Eating
realize
up.
we lost those gains on the Sunday.
Yeah, eating up.
And
We're
so,
eating up on Sunday.
eating up on a Sunday. And then on top of that, nobody, the visitors are not around to rent, they've turned in the cars, they're not in the hotel rooms. So you're losing in all areas. And I thought that was
Right.
I must tell you, I was one of those persons who supported the move to go from a regular night and make the Sunday more local so that the
Right.
cost is in line with what the return could be.
Yeah, and I think it really opened up, like I said, the Sunday to more establishments and vendors. It created this space, for different events.
In the same atmosphere that was there
Right.
before. Correct.
Right, and I think that
And
was a good
I'm
thing,
glad
yeah.
you shed some light on that, on why the Sunday couldn't happen anymore, because a lot of people just thought the Sunday was just, crossed off the list, and they didn't. I don't think a lot of people understood the logistics behind it. So I'm glad you shed some light on it. And like Azem said, I think it opened up big opportunities because those persons that are still on island, both local and international visitors, they now have the chance to soak up the local events.
Absolutely. Correct.
What's left of the weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a music festival last year, and I don't think there's anyone who could not see the reason for that. I know Kevon for sure is having some music fest tabanco. He
Withdrawals,
usually
crazy withdrawals.
Yeah, he's usually on the railing shirtless,
Yeah.
nipples pressed against the cold iron.
I always wondered who that guy was.
Oh yes, I'm telling you, but now you know. Now you know. But I'm hoping that we have music festival this year, even if it's not in the way that we've seen it before. Like you said, sometimes we have to embrace change. You believe that there's a possibility that we could have a music fest, even if it might not be what we've had in years past. Do you think there's a chance that we could look forward to some reiteration of the festival?
Well, obviously, I'm not there now,
Right.
but based on my knowledge, having been there before, no matter the format it takes, planning has to start early. I mean, we used to start in November to plan for the music festival.
Telling you.
You have to take into account in November, December, maybe part of January, we were not even sure what's happening with COVID. So it wouldn't have made sense to go even start making plans.
Right.
So in that regard, I do not see it, from where I sit, I don't see it possible
Right.
unless it's going to be completely watered down. Watered down meaning that you don't bring in the big artists that you need time to plan, organize for. You would appreciate that some of these contracts take months to
negotiate.
And so a music festival like we're accustomed to, I don't see that. However, I'm saying that with a bit of water in my mouth, because when I look at what the chair of Carnival, Ms. Harley, did
Right.
recently, and just being able to use technology and still bring a carnival to us under those conditions, I mean, you have to give a credit,
Yeah.
and it make you realize nothing is impossible. So
I mean, you did speak about the type of people we have here and the innovation.
absolutely, absolutely. So I would not say it's out, but I just think maybe the what we're would not be in the form that we're accustomed to.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, understandably so, given the present situation with the pandemic and everything. But I know for people like Fetvan, who having withdrawals, any little fix, I'm sure they'd appreciate.
Any fix.
To stave off some of the symptoms.
I still have some pull with the new chairman, so I would put a plug in for him.
All right, man.
Please, like I could feel my blood sugar levels returning to normal.
I hear you.
But yes, we've gotten to the end of the interview, man, and again, I appreciate you so much for taking the time out. I'm sure your busy schedule. I hope you don't have to fire no workmen today when you get back. But it's been a real pleasure to have you here joining us on Island Tea. And make sure you tune in tomorrow. Don't let me no coldness.
I hear you.
8 to 10.
But really, I want to congratulate you guys. I think you guys are doing a fabulous job with this program. I think it provides an excellent outlet for young people to say what's on their mind. I'm just hoping that the other side of it is happening where people are listening, and some of us in positions, or some of the older ones, are listening and paying attention to what young people are thinking and feeling, because at the end of the day, I think it's the young people who's going to chart the way forward in our country. So congrats to you guys, and I would just want to encourage you to keep up the good works.
Man, I appreciate it, and again, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the listeners. I appreciate all the listeners who tune in daily and support us. I mean, we big them up already this morning, but we could never say thanks enough, because man, without them, this all goes for naught, right? But Kevon, as we started yesterday, and we're now looking forward to doing the future, we have some messages for the listeners, including some of those who Mr. Lawrence hopes are listening.
Yes.
Please drive safely and do right by others. Please use our roundabouts correctly, meaning don't overtake in our roundabouts. Don't switch lanes in our roundabouts. And when you're exiting, please indicate so that folks driving behind you can know what your intentions are. It will reduce accidents and almost accidents by significant proportions.
Stay in your lane, people.
Stay in your lane figuratively and
literally.
Also, please let us remember to park our vehicles in a manner which is conducive to the collection of garbage from our friends at Solid Waste. If you park your cars irresponsibly, then people can get their garbage collected with the trucks.
Clean.
So gentlemen, when you're thieving a piece, please park around the corner,
right,
so the truck can get up the street or where your madam lives to collect her trash.
Indeed. It might work out better for you too.
Indeed. It's going to be a clean environment when you get there the next time. Also, let us please, put pressure on our lawmakers and our policymakers and our policy designers and wheelers and dealers in Parliament to take a look at our outdated laws, all of them. The traffic laws, the sexual assault laws, the everything as it relates to, so that they can relate to current day life and current day society here in St Kitts and Nevis. Update them so it's a reflection of what's actually happening and not what used to happen in the 1960s. And with that, I will turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies, His Excellency Honorable Kevon Hanley.
With that being said, remember that you can't be everybody's cup of tea, because you is not a mug. See you tomorrow.